Right, should you squat to parallel or below? Well, that's what we're going to go into in this video. Unless you're a powerlifter, then is there a reason to do it? Well, the real answer is, well, no. And what's your goal, of course, you know? The issue is that people try to go by what people say and do the common thing, which is, oh, you know, squatting deeper activates your quads more and your glutes more and things like that. Well, yes, that's very true. But what happens if you are getting injured trying to do this, or what if there is something that's stopping it? Now, I've seen a lot of people who do squats and they try to do this and they get what they call the butt wink, which is basically where your back starts to round at the very base of the squat, whatever the base is for you. The issue there is that that's causing obviously some flexion in the spine, and if you're not used to that, it can be an issue potentially for certain people. Now, some people were saying it's tight hamstrings. Well, this is not possible. You know, the hamstrings is crossing two joints, and the reality is that if you've got one of them on slack and the other one on tension, then it's not under stretch. If you've got both ends under stretch, then it's under stretch, and that's going to create a motion change. But when you're squatting, your hip is stretching it, but your knee is slackening it off. So there's no way in the world your hamstrings are going to limit the depth of your squat. It's just not going to be there. Now the glutes, the glute maximus, potentially, but it's very rare to see that much shortening in a glute maximus, and therefore that's pretty unlikely too. Some people look at, you know, how much dorsiflexion you get in your ankles in terms of limiting the depth, and again they'll say your calves are tight and so on. But actually, because you know you've got to go super deep or relatively deep before you get even a forward translation of your knee past your toes, and even when you get to the bottom, the forward position of your knee is not massive. Obviously, some people can have limitations there, but it's certainly not something that's going to limit that. And it probably wouldn't cause the butt wink, but it would limit depth. But if butt winking is happening, you know, then it's not going to be that either. The main reason that people don't realize in a lot of cases is it's your own anatomy. Some people's hip joints are just different. So the way the bones are shaped, you know, the neck of the femur, the length of the neck of the femur, the rotation in the actual hip joint itself, in the actual bones, will actually effectively limit how deep you can go. In some people, I've seen it where they cannot go anatomy-wise any close, well, they can go close, but they can't go to parallel. If they keep going to parallel, they'll just keep butt winking. Now, more to the point, you're actually bashing the acetabular rim with the labrum on it against the actual, against the femur. Well, this isn't a very good idea. One, it could cause just irritation in the hip. It could cause a labral tear maybe. It certainly isn't a good idea, and it's not something that would be advisable, and that person would never make it as a powerlifter, and just like I'll never make it as a 100-meter sprinter, just genetically not able to do it. I could try as hard as I could, train as scientifically and as hard as possible, but I'd never make it because I'm just quite slow twitch. So you just got to take it on the chin. It is what it is. So obviously what this means is you can't change that. There's no way you can change it. So there's no point trying to increase flexibility here, there and everywhere to be able to do it. So effectively, if that's the limit, that's the limit. There are more than one way to get your quads activated. There are more than one way to get your glutes activated. So there are lots of exercise selection ideas that can get you around that problem. And, you know, squatting to whatever depth you can go to without creating that butt wink or create that banging in the hip joint is going to be much better and much better of an option. So yeah, so obviously, you know, there are little ploys, don't get me wrong. So some people might find maybe a bit more of a wider stance might enable it. Some people might find a narrower stance might enable it. A bit of turnout in the feet might enable a little bit more range in there. And that's true. You do have to play around with your stance to subtle margins to see if there's a little bit more range here and there. What you've got to remember though is that say your acetabulum and femur allow more mobility in depth terms in a slightly wider stance, but your hip adductors and things are too shortened for that movement, then that's when you can make the difference. That's when you'd stretch your hip adductors, you know, your groin muscles, to enable the wide spread of the legs to allow the depth to come. So then you might have a chance of going. But again, you've got to be aware, is it a soft tissue limitation which you can improve to enable that wider stance or not? So there is an element of you know, playing around with this, and there is a potential way of improving it, but you know, if you are truly limited in whatever position of abduction, adduction of your hips you're in, you're going to be limited either way. So don't try and force it just won't work. So anyway, hopefully that clears that up. If you like the video, then just give us a like. Comments will be welcome, and remember to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. We want to keep making great content for our subscribers, so if anyone would like to support the channel by making a pledge, then we would be extremely grateful, and you can do this on our Patreon page here.